Hello everyone and welcome to another grammar video on the English Language and Literature Association channel. I'm Zahra Heydari and today we're going to unlock one of the most powerful tools in English syntax, the adverbial clause. Think of a basic sentence as a skeleton. It gives you the structure, but these sentences are often too rigid. What if we want to add context? What if we want to explain? That is exactly where adverbial clauses come into play. Essentially, an adverbial clause is a group of words that functions just like an adverb. It modifies the main verb, adjective, or even the entire sentence by providing critical context. Here on the screen you can see some examples of adverbial clauses. You can see time, place, contrast, concession, cause and effect, conditions and examples that we will examine closely. You already know what an adverb does. It describes an action, telling us how, when, where, or why something happened. And you know a clause is just a group of words with its own subject and predicate. So when we put them together, an adverbial clause is simply a whole team of words working together to do the job of a single adverb. An adverbial clause is dependent. That means it cannot stand alone as a complete sentence. If I walked into the room and just said, "because it was raining," and walked out, you'll all be waiting for the rest of the sentence, right? It leaves you hanging. It must attach itself to a main independent clause to make sense. What is its actual job? It modifies or describes a verb, an adjective, or another adverb by giving us vital context. It answers big questions like when did it happen? Where did it happen? Why did it happen? Under what rules will it happen? What was the goal? And how do we build one of them? The formula is always the same. We use subordinating conjunction plus subject plus predicate. Okay. On this slide, we are looking at three different ways to add context to a sentence: a single adverb, an adverbial phrase, and an adverbial clause. All three of these perform the exact same job. They modify a verb, but they are all built completely different. Let's look at the first example. He bakes cakes weekly. The word weekly is a single word adverb. Yes, it tells us when or how often he bakes. Simple, right? Next, look at how we can expand that into a phrase. André, actually it's French name, okay? André eats his lunch with geste. The words with geste tells us how he eats. But notice, is there a subject or a verb inside with geste? No, it's just a group of words working together without the subject and verb. Yes, that makes it a phrase. Finally, let's look at our star of the show, the adverbial clause. Andre eats his lunch faster than everyone else eats. Look at that last part. We have our subordinating conjunction then, our subject everyone else, and our verb eats. Because it has both a subject and a verb, it graduates from a phrase to a clause. It still modifies the main verb eats, but it gives us a highly detailed comparison. The most common way we use adverbial clauses is to talk about time. These clauses answer the question when relative to the main action. As you can see from our reference list on the slide, we use different conjunctions depending on the timing relationships. Simultaneous actions during the same time, it means. We use a while or as. For example, she was reading a book while the dinner was cooking. Or you can see two things happening at once. Time elapsed since an event. We use since. I have not seen him since he returned to the country. Time before an event. We use before or until. They will leave before you got here. But now, look at the bottom half of this slide. This is where English gets sneaky. We have something called abridged or elliptical adverbial clauses. Elliptical just means some words have been intentionally left out because they are already understood. Look at this sentence. When young, I looked at things differently. What is missing there? The words I was. The full sentence is when I was young, yes. But native speakers drop the subject and the to be verb to sound more concise. The same thing happens here. She always sings when doing her work. What's missing? She is, yes. She always sings when she is doing her work. As long as the subject matches the main clause, you can chop those words right out. Clauses of place answer the question where. They are usually introduced by where or wherever. Look at the example. We live where the road crosses the river. The clause where the road crosses the river tells us the exact location of our living. Or look at this literary example. Wherever possible, the illustrations are taken from literature. If we unabridge that one, it means wherever possible. Yes. Now, let's look at clauses of cause or reason. These answer the ultimate question, why. We all know the word because, but if you want to elevate your writing, especially for essays or formal presentations, look at the other options on this slide. Instead of he couldn't come because he was ill, you can use since, or as if you're writing a legal document or a formal essay, you might use whereas or inasmuch as. For example, inasmuch as no one was hurt because of his negligence, the judge gave him a light sentence. It sounds heavy and official, but it literally just means because or considering that. And just like time clauses, cause clauses can be abridged. It's an unpardonable insult since intentional. If you fill in the blanks, it means since it is intentional. Clauses of condition. These establish the rules for the main clause to happen. They answer the question under what circumstances. The classic conjunction here is if. If it rains, we won't have the picnic. The picnic being cancelled is entirely dependent on the condition of rain. But we can also use negative conditions like unless, which means if not. We won't have the picnic unless the weather is good. Just like before, we can abridge this. Please come early if possible means if it is possible, okay? I want you to look closely at the bottom of this slide because this is an advanced structure that shows up on a standardized test and high-level writing, inverted structures. Sometimes we completely delete the word if and flip the sentence structure around. Instead of saying, if I were in your position, I would take that offer, we drop the if and start with the verb. Were I in your position, I would take that offer. Instead of, if I had known you were coming, I would have met you at the station, we inverted to had I known you were coming, I would have met you at the station. It sounds deeply elegant and sophisticated, but structurally, it's just a conditional adverbial clause with a if hidden away. Clauses of contrast, sometimes called adversative clauses. These are the tools you use when you want to throw a plot twist into your sentence. They show that the action in your main clause happened despite whatever was going on in the dependent clause. Our go-to words here are although, though, and even though. Look at our first example. Although I felt very tired, I tried to finish the work. Logically, if you are exhausted, you might stop working, but although tells your listener, get ready, I pushed through anyway. If you want to sound incredibly formal, especially in academic or legal writing, look at this heavy hitter. Notwithstanding the fact that the government was weak at the time, law and order were maintained. It sounds massive, but it literally just means even though. Now look at the bottom half of the slide. Yes, we can abridge contrast clauses too. If the subject matches, we can chop out the subject and the verb. Instead of saying, although he was only a boy, it was a man's work, we can elegantly say, although only a boy, he does a man's work. And we have one major exception to note. If you look at the conjunctions while and whereas, we use them to show direct side-by-side comparison. Like, some people spend their spare time reading while others watch television, because these switch to a completely different subject. They can't be abridged. Keep them whole. Clauses of purpose versus clauses of result. They look similar. They both use the word that, but their logical directions are completely different. Purpose looks forward. It explains the goal or intention behind an action before or while it happens. We use so that or in order that. He's saving his money so that he can go to the college, for example. Why is he saving? The future goal is college. Result, on the other hand, looks backward. It explains the actual outcome that was achieved. Look closely at this example. They climbed higher so that they got a better view. Notice something special there? Exactly, the comma. In a result clause, that tiny little comma before so that acts like an equal sign. It tells us, and because they did that, this was the real world outcome. We also build results using modifiers like so plus adjective plus that or such plus noun plus that to show intensity. For example, she sang so beautifully that everyone applauded. Or for example, it's such a hot day that I must go to the pool. The intensity of the beauty or the heat directly triggered the result. Clauses of comparison evaluates equality or inequality. We use the structures like as for equal things. For example, she works just as hard as her sister works, or more or less than for unequal things. For example, she works harder than her sister works. I guess we all know that. Notice the parentheses on your slide. In everyday English, we almost always abridge comparison clauses by dropping the final repeating verb. We don't say as her sister works, we just say as her sister does, or simply as her sister. Okay, clauses of manner answer the question how or in what style. For example, he hasn't behaved as a gentleman should, or he looks as if he needs more sleep. And check out these quick literally abridgments at the bottom. The clouds disappeared as if by magic. We don't need to say as if they were disappeared by magic. We just slice it right down to the core phrase. If you want to express a purpose, English gives you 3 distinct architectural pathways to build your sentence. You can use an adverbial clause, an infinitive phrase, or a prepositional phrase. Let's watch how a doctor sending a patient for tests change shape across all 3. The first method uses our classic adverbial clauses. That, in order, that, plus subject, plus modal auxiliary, can, could, or might. The doctor sent her to the hospital so that she could take a series of tests. Because it's a clause, it demands a subject, she, and a modal verb, could. The second method slims it down into an infinitive phrase in order to plus the rest of the sentence. We say the doctor sent her to the hospital in order to take a series of tests. We stripped away the subject entirely. And the third method converts it into a prepositional phrase. We use for. We say the doctor sent her to the hospital for a series of tests. All 3 sentences mean the exact same thing, but notice how your grammar toolbox expands when you realize you can swap a whole clause for a single prepositional phrase. This slide highlights a rule that trips up non-native speakers and shows up constantly on exams. Tense configuration in future context. Here is the golden rule. When a sentence points to the future, your adverbial time clause never uses a future tense marker like will. It must use a present tense variant instead. Let's look at the example. He will go straight home after he closes the store. Look at the main clause. He will go. It's future, yes. But look at the time clause introduced by after. He closes. It's simple present. If you say after he will close the store, it's grammatically incorrect. If you want to emphasize that the action is 100% completed before the next one starts, you can even use the present perfect. You say after he has closed the store, but it must stay in the present family. Same thing applies to our second example. She will never marry until she finds the right man. Main clause is future, will never marry, but the until clause uses simple present, finds, yes. If future contexts have strict rules, past contexts are all about aspect, meaning how actions interact with each other along a timeline. When a past time clause is introduced by when, it usually steps up one of 2 distinct scenarios. The first scenario is interrupted continuous action. Here, a continuous process was already ongoing in the background when a sudden single event interrupted it. We pair the past progressive with the simple past. For example, I was shopping downtown when I met an old friend. The shopping was the continuous wave. Meeting the friend was a single point that intersected it. The next scenario is action just completed. In this scenario, one event